Hello and welcome back to the NESN.com Patriots Mailbag. I'm Doug Kyed. Any questions, tweet them to me at Doug Kyed using the hashtag MailDoug, and I will answer them either here or in NESN.com's weekly written mailbag. Let's get right into it though. Tim Naughton asks, with Cannon out, what move did the Patriots make to shore up the offensive line? Patriots right tackle Marcus Cannon is one of 6 players who's opting out for the 2020 season on the Patriots roster, and that does definitely leave the Patriots in a bind on their offensive line because they already did not have a lot of depth at offensive tackle. So I think they need to bring in a veteran option there. Their only options right now on the team are Corey Cunningham. He barely played for the Patriots last season. Yadni Kajust has yet to actually practice with the Patriots after being drafted last year. Justin Herron, who's a rookie 6th-round pick. So whether it's a higher-priced guy like Cordy Glenn, maybe bring back a guy like Adrian Waddle, who was sort of a mainstay reserve on the Patriots offensive line for a number of years, they need to get some sort of veteran presence in that group to just make sure that they've got insurance at that position in case Cunningham, Kajust, Herron, those guys don't work out. Second question here comes from Malium. I'm going to go with, how do players that opt out this year affect the cap space for next year? The Pats were supposed to have a ton of space, but will that decrease because contracts were pushed back? Ultimately, no, because the amount of cap space that has now been created this season, which is almost $25 million by those opt-outs, can now roll into the 2021 season. So one way or another, they're basically going to have the same amount of cap space that they would have had anyway next season. And that's assuming that those guys that we were talking about who have opted out, Patrick Chung, Brandon Bolden, Dante Hightower, Marcus Cannon, all guys who are getting up there in years, who are now going to miss an entire season, are back next season. That's not an assumption that I'm willing to make. I'm certainly not going to make any decisions or conclusions right now, but I certainly would not be shocked if 1 or 2 or 3 of those guys who have opted out are not back next season, and then that would create even more cap space for 2021. So the Patriots are definitely in a good situation cap space-wise next year, despite the fact that the NFL salary cap will certainly be lowered because of the lack of fans and stands and attendance this season. Last one comes from Jeff Fuller, who asks, everyone talks about Brady didn't have weapons last year. Partially true, but don't you think the wide receiver group had injuries that prevented them from reaching full potential? I think we'll see major improvements this season from Sanu and Harry. Agree? I do think the Patriots will see some significant improvements out of Mohamed Sanu and N'Keal Harry this season for a number of reasons, of one of which is one that Jeff mentioned, and that was the fact that both players were dealing with injuries last season that really set back their progress quite a bit. The other one is the fact that, ultimately this is a net negative for the Patriots, but Tom Brady certainly demands wide receivers to know the offense like the back of their hand and his hand and everyone's hand. And I don't think the same will be demanded of by the Patriots quarterback this season, whether that is Cam Newton or Jarrett Stidham or Brian Hoyer or Brian Lewerke or Julian Edelman or me or whoever's playing quarterback for the Patriots in 2020. I think that the offense will be simplified a little bit, and that will only assist younger or newer Patriots wide receivers like Sanu and Harry and Jacoby Myers and all of these other guys that we've been talking about all offseason. So Patriots wide receiver core, certainly not one of the best in the NFL, but I do think they will be better in 2020 than they were in 2019.